I think 2 hours heads up is like 5 hours in a tournament, because you can stay and wait in tournaments and you cannot wait in heads up.
Welcome back to the Durrrr Challenge. And a very sort of tight match. Very well suited, these two, Isaac.
Yeah, this has been very interesting so far. Both players making some sophisticated plays, giving each other a lot of credit.
And a lot of things to think about as time goes on. You mentioned that both players are very aggressive from the button. Neither player is giving up too easily. So we're seeing a lot of flops.
Yeah. Marcello has flopped 2 pair here.
He's betting all the time?
I would think so. I think this is a situation where he wants to bet frequently with the gut shots to the king through 9 straight and the flush draws and maybe some other hands, and so he can balance that by value betting a lot as well. In such a dry board that Tom's 6s are pretty strong, I'd expect him to call at least 1, often 2 barrels, depending on what comes off on the river.
That's the kind of card where, like, I mean, if Marcello bets, it's starting to look either like a bluff or something very strong now, right?
Yeah, especially because that's a card that will often improve Tom. When he checks back the flop and calls the turn, he will have ace-high very frequently. So Marcello has to have, I would say, at least a pretty good ace to be confident value betting here. If he has a hand like king-queen, I think it's a pretty tough spot to value bet.
You know, is Tom
2 pair.
That's going to win.
I think Tom thought the ace got him the 2 pair, didn't he? No?
Well,
Missing.
could be. Plenty of other 2-pair possibilities, though I'm not sure he was expecting Marcello to have defended his big blind by calling with 9-4 suited. Tom continuing to refuse to give up on the river against Marcello's bets. He hasn't seen a bluff yet. He just keeps calling.
Yeah, and you know, Marcello now sort of in the pink, as it were, ahead in this match. I think he's won about 100K straight. Tom's thinking,
yeah,
bam,
he's
bam,
on a good
bam.
little run here.
You know, and from what we've seen, he's made some nice hands.
Yeah. Tom has re-raised.
There's Sammy in the background, laughing, cheering on. I think he's cheering for both Tom and Marcello. You know, he's been so great throughout this series.
Tom continues his approach of mainly checking after having 3-bet. Marcello betting more or less as a bluff here. I don't think you can consider this a value bet, though mainly the hands Tom will fold are behind ace-9. On this street, Marcello might be setting up to fire multiple barrels, however, especially if a card like a jack or an 8 comes off.
Yeah, and this is so similar to like an earlier hand when Marcello, would check the flop and then I think he bet the turn. Is that correct? Or did he bet the flop and check the turn?
In which hand?
When he had the king 10.
Yeah, he bet the flop and checked the turn in that hand, so very similar line here. Only he fails to improve on the river this time. Marcello checking behind, probably expecting to lose the vast majority of the time here. And Durrrr collects a $45,000 pot with his pair of 9s.
Yeah, and I think that'll make them about dead level again. Although, it doesn't seem like that's what either one is thinking about. I think it's just us.
Tom will still be stuck a little.
Yeah, my girlfriend rigged it for Sammy to beat me.
Sort of.
And then she started laughing when you sucked out on me, too. It was sweet.
Raise up to 3,000. Call.
Sammy is still king of this castle, this Les Ambassador. This is his home. This is his turf. And Tom and Marcello, very welcome guests.
Marcello flopping top pair, Tom a gut shot.
Check.
What's happened?
Once again, Tom almost puts a chip in the pot and then changes his mind. I wonder if it's a mind game or if he's just kind of tired and not so well focused.
Expected Marcello to bet there. Why didn't he?
I think hoping to induce a bluff from Tom. Marcello obviously has to be confident his hand is best here.
I mean, if Tom had something like, you know, Jack 10 or King 9, something like that, he would have been happy to kind of check it down, wouldn't he? And pay off at the same time.
He might have eventually bet a king on either the turn or the river, faced with two checks. A jack, I think he would have likely been happy to check all the way down.
You read very well. Because when you were betting, you read my face maybe.
No, I just knew I shouldn't. I just had absolutely nothing. But I had a queen then, so I could
Queen.
win.
But it's enough to beat me.
To me, Marcello seems very hard to read. He
yeah,
seems very relaxed at all times and focused.
Yeah, I have thus far been very impressed with how Marcello has played.
Like, I can't text him on the one I have, so I can only call him.
Continuing to mix up his raise sizing from the button, we've seen 2, 2.5, and 3,000 from Marcello so far.
Tom's turn to flop big.
Yep. Tom just calling with the 8s once again. And leading out, flopping bottom set. Flopping bottom set is often a great opportunity to get a lot of chips off your opponent because it leaves all the cards left in the deck for them to have top or second pair, as opposed to some situation like if you flop top 2 with ace 10, there are a lot fewer possibilities for your opponent to have a strong hand to lose a lot of money to you with.
And what's the idea behind Marcello floating this?
A lot of optimism would be what I'd say. He has a very weak hand. His only opportunity to win is if Tom decides to check fold the turn. Which obviously he won't with a set of 8s, but maybe he does if he has something pretty weak like 9-6 or 7-6. Marcello's now picked up a gut shot. I wonder if, having made such an ambitious float on the flop, he might go for a raise here. With Queen-Jack being, you know, the sort of hand Tom might expect him to float the flop with more frequently.
Oh, God.
Double gut shot, which makes the nuts on this turn card.
And if he does go for a raise here, Tom can't exactly just start shoveling chips in.
No, if he raises here, Tom will call and probably pay off the river.
11,000 into 13. Wow, very creative to do it. Is it ever going to work?
Against a set of 8s? No. Against a weaker hand? Yes.
Raise up to 35,000.
You know, the flop float was a little ambitious, but I like this turn raise. Obviously, it's going to end in disaster because Tom happens to have a set here. But even if Tom has a relatively strong hand, an ace-9 or an ace-jack, something like that, he has to be very concerned against this raise. Though, as we've seen, Tom has absolutely refused to fold to Marcello thus far in this match.
Call.
Yeah, well, the first trick is to hope the board pairs. Then you can see what happens on the river.
Exactly.
Right?
You have too much equity, even against the nuts, to really consider folding on the turn unless he just showed you the queen-jack.
Wow, and does Marcello have...
Got it.
Oh. He gave up. He gave up
did
there.
give up.
And what's the thought?
I think that's prudent. I think that if a heart hits, maybe even something like a 9 that completes some of the more speculative straight draws, then he can try to fire again, but